guys. Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth Podcast. I'm super excited about today's episode for a couple different reasons. Number one, we got a guest in the building, and before we introduce him, I'm also excited because we're back at the studio. Ain't nothing like being in the studio, the vibe, the interaction. Love it. So yeah, let's get right into today's guest for the Latin Wealth Podcast. The guest for today, he is the founder of a company called Cosign, a Black-owned, award-winning tech-enabled media company based out here in Dallas, Texas. Underneath the Cosign umbrella, they got a lot going on, from magazines, a podcast, merch. They even operate a full-service in-house production and media studio. So they're doing a lot of dope things, making a dope impact on the community, a real media mogul. Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, Curtis Graham, a.k.a. KG. What's good, bro?
Man, thanks, bro. That was an amazing intro, man. I need to steal this clip.
Right.
Send it to anybody when they want to do my intro.
Yeah, do it like this. I'm a little rusty. It's crazy. I'm a little rusty. But yeah, man, thank you for hopping on the podcast. Thank you for your time and your energy. Before we get into it, I was on your IG lately, and I see that you've been hooping at this league, man.
Yeah, man.
Is that something that you guys put on? Because I'm like, man, I need to pull up.
Yeah, bro. So we recently launched Champions of the Court basketball tournament series. So, man, I've been as an entrepreneur, man, I've been trying to find a way to unwind and relax.
For sure.
And basketball has always been therapeutic for me. So I've been hooping with friends on Thursdays in Plano, and I was like, man, let me just create this little tournament, bro. So we're like entrepreneurs, artists, creators can get together, hoop, and just kind of fellowship and have fun. And, just for like bragging rights, man. So I love hooping, bro. I've been hooping all my life. That was my first love, basketball. So, man, as an adult, it's cool that I can still get out there every once in a while and, show them I still got it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to definitely tap in with you because I'll be hooping. I try to hoop like at least a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's therapeutic. For entrepreneurs, sometimes we need an outlet. We always on the go. We always hustling.
Facts.
And we just need something to just ease our mind. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like you can relate basketball. Like you're not thinking about nothing. You just competing. You're having a good time, and that's it.
Yeah, that's my point, bro. So when I'm hooping, like I'm not thinking about nothing else about like what's going on, the play. You know what I'm saying? My next move. I'm not worried about life, anything outside of that. So it's cool to take your mind off of that and just to focus on the game.
For sure. I was in New York about like 2 weeks ago, and I was meeting with this entrepreneur that's got like an influencer agency out there. And he seemed like, I'm surprised that he like sat down and had dinner with me because he seemed like he always on the go and whatnot. I'm like, man, how do you take care of your mental health? Like, what are some of the things that you do? Because involved in so much, and he really didn't have an answer. He's like, man, it's something I need to work on.
Nah, facts. This just happened. So like the tournament was like maybe June 30th was I think June 30th was the first one. So outside of that, bro, I haven't really done anything like basketball. I probably got back in the hooping maybe 2 months ago, and I've been doing it every Thursday. So. Yeah. Outside of that, man, there's nothing that I do for myself. Like people ask, like, what do you do for fun? I mean, I go to events, but then when you think about it, the events, I'm working. Yeah, so I'm always working. And even where I live, it's like a live, work, creative space. So I'm never off. Like I'm always on go. I can always get up and do something real quick. So I need to find some balance to where like I can just, step away from work completely. Yeah. But I'm working on it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Do you be feeling, we're both older. Yeah. After the day after I hoop, man, my whole body is just destroyed.
I got a story to tell you, man. And my dude Ziggy's in the audience right now, so
he can attest cracking up.
So let me tell you this, bro. We have played 2 games, right? Mind you, I hoop on Thursdays, but it's like an open gym, so like nobody's going super hard. Bro, I hooped 2 games in this tournament. I mean, I don't recall spraining my ankle or nothing. I mean, I walked out the tournament, walked up the stairs, walked to the car, got home, walked up some stairs. I'm good. And then over like the span of the next 4 hours, I'm like, man, my ankle's throbbing a little bit, right? It went from throbbing to I'm like, man, like I could barely move it. And then it went to like, bro, I felt like I had like pins stabbing me in my ankle to where I couldn't walk on, I couldn't put no pressure. And everybody looking at me like, what happened to you? I'm like, bro, I don't know what.
It's just, I don't know.
I had to elevate. I had to put I had no ice, so I had to put like frozen broccoli on my ankle. It was just a mess, man.
Man, I feel it, man. My back be locking up and all that.
Man, all that, bro.
That's crazy. So before you were creative and entrepreneur, I mean, you came a long way. Man, walk us through the journey that you took and you went through to get to where you're at, to be able to say like, yo, I want to create my own basketball league. I want to throw these events and whatnot.
No.
We're gonna get into some of those things that you're doing.
Okay.
But yeah, man, talk to me. I know you grew up in a Panamanian household, which
Yes.
is dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to give you the condensed story. So both my parents were from Colón, Panama. So they were both born, raised there, stayed until like about 21, 22. And then they moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
When my dad moved to New York, he became a citizen and then ended up joining the army. They had me in Brooklyn and my sister in Brooklyn as well. And when joining the army, they moved around a lot to where that's how we ended up getting to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So in Texas, that's where I found my love for basketball. It's like the first place that I actually got to sit down with for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got friends, fell in love with basketball. I also fell in love with magazines.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I took an AP psychology class. I love psychology, and my psychology teacher, she introduced me really into media and advertising and marketing, because she asked me why I love psychology, and I'm like, I like studying people, right? I like figuring out why people do what they do and the reasoning behind it. And when she told me like psychology had to go to school for like 8 years, I was like, man, I don't know if I could do eight more years of school. And she was like, well, there's other ways to figure out people and study people. She was like, marketing is a study of people's behaviors, right? Their buying behaviors, etc. So she was like, look into marketing. So from there, I looked into marketing, advertising. Ended up getting into University of Houston, UTA, and Northwood University. I hate Houston. I'm sorry. So I was like, no way I'm moving to Houston.
Why do you hate it?
Man, it's just every time I go, something bad happens to me.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then I feel like it's big, it's spread out, and like everything's already set. Like in Dallas, even when I didn't live here, I'm like, man, Dallas is wide open. Like there's nothing that you could really see and be like, that person owns this market or this industry in Dallas, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's like I figured I could come here and make a way for myself. So I came here. I ended up going to Northwood University, which was a private business school. Hated it, but I had to stick around.
Yeah.
And from there, I ended up working at Eargasm, which was a CD store. And I met Talib Kweli, I met Young Buck from G Unit, I met all these artists, and I realized the artists were accompanied by like A&Rs. So I got introduced to an A&R. She gave me my first internship at Universal Music. They had a home office here. I did that for 6 months. I got to work on Joel Santana project. I got to work on some rock and some indie rock projects. It was an amazing experience. After that 6 months, I was still working at Eargasm, and then I met Jen River City. She was basically like in charge of marketing for Ozone magazine, which was a hip hop magazine. So I got her email address. I emailed her over and over and over again. Told her I want to work for Ozone. She told me to email Julia Beverly, which is basically the owner of Ozone magazine. Emailed her. They gave me my first start as basically just passing out magazines. I did that. Then they gave me like a marketing position. And then they allowed me to like basically go to like different places in Texas, pass out the magazines, take pictures, and I get credit in the magazine and do like little marketing stuff. While I was doing it, I realized that, man, these artists are accompanied by, publicists, managers, photographers. And it's like, man, why come nobody's interviewing them and telling their stories? And when I asked them, they were like, well, we're really focused on the artists. It's a hip hop magazine. People want to know about the artists. So I always kept that in the back of my head. I'm like, man, when I start my own magazine, I want to interview all the people, like the executives, the photographer, people behind the scenes, because they're just as important. I also realized I'm a horrible employee, right? So I come to work late, I leave early, and I take extended lunch breaks. And I don't want to be questioned about neither one of them, right? So at that point, it's like, man, I have to work for myself. So I ended up going overseas for 2 years, Afghanistan, as a contractor. My daughter was a year old. I was broke. My parents, they were pretty much the type of parents who were like, they let me be me. They believed in my vision. Whatever I want to do, they'll support it. So I told them I want to go overseas. They were like, do you? They'll take care of my daughter. I went over there, man, saved money up for 2 years, came back, and I launched Cosign. So it originally started as a print publication. That's all I was doing, was a print magazine, 'cause that's what was going on at the time. And then from there, I started realizing when I hold my first issue release event, I'm like, man, people will come to meet the staff, meet whoever was in the magazine, and they'll buy issues. So I got really heavy into doing events, and that's what grew Cosign when I started doing events. It allowed me to meet so many different people and build a community through doing these events.
And what year was this?
So I started Cosign 2011.
Wow.
Yeah, I started 2011. I didn't host my first events like maybe like 2014. 14 though.
Mm-hmm.
So like those first 3 years, I was just in the red. I was losing money. Like I was printing for free. I had no advertising. I mean, people would like buy like a little thing here and there, but it wasn't enough to cover production, creative design, nothing. So this was all out of pocket, maxing out credit cards, using money from work to put into that. So yeah, I was basically just hustling backwards, honestly, to tell you the truth. And when I first held my first event, that's the first time I made profit with Cosign. And I'm like, wow, so this is what I need to be doing. I need to be hosting events. That's what kind of got me into the aspect of throwing events with Cosign. And everything else just kind of like happened over time. You know, just kind of grew from there.
No, I love that. I heard one of your past interviews, and I mean, you were saying that while you were in the red in those early stages, you would, you know, get a job, get a quick hustle or something like that, pay for what you need to pay for, and then get right back to it.
Exactly.
So my question is, when do people feel like they should quit or continue going, right? Because it's not necessarily a bad thing to quit. Like it's not, right? People make it seem like you should never quit.
Right.
Nah, like there's gonna be a time in your life where you're gonna have to quit whatever that is. For you, it's like you quit that job, but you said I ain't going back to that.
Right. Yeah.
There's some things that we need to do that
Yeah.
for in our life. But for you, even though you was in the red, you was hustling backwards for 3 years, you continued. So what do you feel like for people out there is the difference? You know what I'm saying? To quit or to continue going?
That's a great question. So for me, I'll give you 2 examples. A job, there's no ownership in a job, right? So just like a job will fire you at any moment with no just cause or anything. That's why I'm okay with quitting jobs any time. Right. If it no longer serves my purpose or no longer aligns with me, I have no problem quitting.
Yeah.
As far as your personal journey, your own company, etc., I would say before you quit, take a break. Right. Take a break, reassess, or pivot. Right. If something's not working, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. It just maybe you're doing something wrong that you need to pivot. There's been plenty of times to where I took a break at Cosign. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I took a break and didn't do anything for like a month or two. I just kind of studied other media companies, studied what other organizations were doing, and figured out what I could do to add, my Cosign sauce to it. Then I would come back, reassess, and do it again. There's been times where I definitely wanted to hang it up, but I'm passionate about it. It's my purpose, so I didn't want to completely give it up. I would just add new things to it to reignite me, give me extra energy and things that I could always add on to make Cosign successful. So my advice for people within their company when they're ready to quit, I would say take a break first. I would say find ways to pivot, right? So maybe if you're a clothing brand and you're doing, if you're selling T-shirts and that's not working for you, figure out why selling T-shirts isn't working for you. Are you doing pop-up shops? Are you hosting fashion shows? Are you doing e-commerce? Are you paying influencers? Like, just pivot, find other things to do, right? Or maybe it's not so. Maybe it's your designs that's not working, right? So figure out the process of what it is to sell T-shirts. Maybe become the T-shirt printer.
Yeah.
Like there's other things to do to keep you in the same industry, and you can pursue that and become successful. It just may not be what your original idea was.
No, that's 100% facts. And it's crazy that you brought that up because before we hit record, I was telling you, like, I kind of took a break from podcasting.
Right.
The listeners know when you guys listen to this, it probably was a 3-month gap since we put out an episode. And that's essentially what I did, bro. Like, I got to a point where I was like, you got to take a step back and you got to figure out how to fix something and like analyze it, break it, put it back together to see how it works.
Right.
Not only put it back together to see how it works, but to remind you of the passion that you had going through the process, right? And that's what I did. Like, y'all listening to this probably 3 months later, and that's what we stopped. We took a break, analyzed what we were doing wrong, what we can do better, and now we're jumping back into it. And in the time during that break, man, I was thinking about podcasting every day, bro. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night, like, I got to get back to it. I got to get back to it. People would be asking me, like my wife's father, he was like, he called my wife. He was like, I think something's wrong with my podcast app because every time I'm loading it to see where Chris's podcast is at, it's not coming up.
Yeah.
He ain't been putting out one. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting people hitting me up.
Yeah.
But I love that advice to take a break from it.
Take a break, man.
And if it's still tugging at your heart, that's probably something that you need to jump into. Yeah.
No, definitely come back. There's been companies I started that I have quit because I wasn't passionate about it.
Yeah.
My first shot at entrepreneurship, I had a record label. Like one of my friends was an amazing artist. He was so talented, and I wanted to help him, so I started a record label, and we did pretty good. I mean, at that time we were 18. We sold 500 CDs, you know, like hand to hand at $10 a pop. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, man, that was like our first mixtape, and then we printed again and did it again. But I also realized it wasn't my purpose. It wasn't my passion. I did it for him. So when he became, you know, lazy, I told him this in his face. When he became lazy, it's like, man, I can't pour into this more than you are, because, bro, you're the artist. Yeah. I'm just here to support you.
I can't want it more than you want
it. Exactly. So I let the record label go and, you know, just continue about my journey. But yeah, man, when it's not for you, there's nothing wrong with quitting. But if you're truly passionate about it, like you said, you was waking up thinking about podcasts and dreaming about it, like, if you would honestly just do it for free with no money, then just, you know, just reassess, man. Take that break. Like, people get exhausted. Burnout is real. You know, people get exhausted. You have to get that energy back. You got to rest up and come back at it. So I feel like we both done that.
Yeah, that's a bar. That's a jam, bro. That's the first time I've heard someone say that. So I agree with you. So, man, walk us through the creative process to putting together a magazine, man. Like, we don't ever think about that. We just buy magazines and just consume them, but we never think about the other end of it and what it takes to put it together.
It's definitely a lot, bro. And you know what's crazy is I didn't think about that neither before I put the first one together. I was like, man, why? I probably should have asked the art director firsthand, and like, what goes all into this, man. But so for us, we do our issues. First, we do double covers. So there's 2 covers in each magazine, right? So that means there's 2 cover shots. That means there's 2 main stories.
Why?
For one, since we're Dallas based, we always want to highlight and honor somebody in Dallas. And for 2, we also don't want to be boxed as only Dallas. So one side you'll see a Dallas entrepreneur, artist, creative, and the other side you'll see a national talent. And I do that so that when I approach these bigger brands, they just don't look at me as only as a Dallas market. I'm like, hey, well, we've interviewed so and so from LA or from Cali, from New York, Miami. So it opens up our audience, it opens up who we can work with, our readership, our viewership. So that's why I went into it wanting to appeal to, you know, a national scale, but also pay homage to Dallas. So outside of figuring out who you're gonna have on the cover, we do it by themes, so that way our issue isn't all over the place, right? So we've had like the power issue, the blueprint issue, so things like that. So once we have the theme, then we'll go through and kind of look who fits the theme. We're entrepreneurs, artists, creators, and we'll be like, okay, let's interview this person, and this person, and then we'll always try to think of an article or story you could write that aligns with that, right? Sometimes it's not about an interview; it's about, you know, open op-ed content that we could write for it. And then from there, we have to find, you know, businesses and advertisers to make sure we pay for everything. So then you got to go on the hustle of, you know, either previous clients that you had or look for new clients.
Right.
And, you know, in this day, to be completely transparent, you know, people say print is dying. I don't believe print is dying, but people are investing more in digital. So we end up having to pivot and create a package to where it couples print advertising with digital and social media.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so like so you just have to like reassess, because when I wasn't selling ads print wise, I'm like, okay, let me figure out why this isn't working. Everybody's spending money digitally on Instagram, Facebook ads.
Why don't you feel like print is dead?
I feel like print has turned into one of those keepsake items, right?
Like a collectible type of thing?
Like a collectible.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's a collectible. Like, it's one of those things to where, like, when you go to somebody's apartment or studio, you're going to see it on a coffee table.
Yeah, coffee table.
You know what I'm saying? You'll see it around. It's not completely dead. People still read. Like, even like books. You'll never catch me doing an audio book. Nothing wrong with it, but I like actually going to the bookstore or Amazon, reading about it, ordering it, getting it, holding it in my hand, and flipping the pages. Something
What's that bookstore right here? Discount bookstore.
Discount books.
Yeah, the big old store. Yeah, I be going in there. Same thing, bro. I go in there. I buy all my books, bro.
Exactly, bro. So I like to hold them. I like to read them, and I like to collect them. So when you go to my loft, on my window panel, you'll see all my books lined up, right? So it's the same thing with magazines. So it won't be for everybody to purchase it, but people will purchase them as keepsake items or collectibles. And, you know, like, I want to, you know, one day, maybe when we get to 100 issues, I want to do something to where, like, if you have all 100 issues of Cosign, man, you get $1,000, or, you know, some type of a media experience.
Yeah,
you know,
VIP or something.
Yeah, so I kind of want to. I'm always about experiences, so I want a couple something like that. And people, I feel like holding magazines is nostalgic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure.
And that's the way things are going. Like, people are starting to value things that were once old. right? Things that were, we were privy to when we were younger.
Yeah.
So like I will always print. Like I tell people, like I don't care how digital we go or how technology grows, I will adapt, but I'll never just discontinue printing.
Yeah.
I'll always
Yeah.
keep that as an option. Like even now, like we'll do a batch of printing for an event, but outside of that, it's print on demand, right? So if you don't catch it at the actual event that we have, then you can always order it online, and we work with the company that will print one-off magazines and ship directly to the client or the customer.
And that's super dope. So, transitioning a little bit, putting together a magazine and being in media and whatnot. Something that's really important is relationships, right? You gotta network with the advertisers. You gotta connect with the people that you want to put in the magazine. I'm assuming you're probably not writing all the articles, so you're going out to article writers and whatnot. Man, talk about the power of investing in relationships and building relationships, right?
Man.
You being out here in Dallas, I'm sure like you were just telling me before that you were just all over the place, at different camps and, talk to us about the power of relationships, especially being in media.
Yeah, relationships are extremely valuable, right? Relationships can make or break your company. I realize, man, that, relationships are how you actually conduct business. So like, for example, the reason why I called our brand Cosign is because there's a lot of power in a cosign. Cosign is word of mouth. It's like a stamp of approval, right? So let's say you said, "Hey, KG, there's a super talented or extremely knowledgeable person in real estate. You should tap into them if you want to invest in real estate." Because you co-sign that person, I'm going to give them a shot, right? I'm going to work with them. I'm going to talk to them, right? So that's the same thing in business. Like those relationships can basically walk you into doors that money can't buy.
Yeah.
Even with like my brand sponsorships, man, a lot of it is based off of relationships. Like they keep coming back to me because we have a relationship. Or they'll even ask me about other events, and they'll be like, "Hey, do you know so and so? They reached out about partnering. What do you think we should do?" So it's crazy that people hold so much value on a relationship, but it makes sense because people want to work with people that they know, like, and trust.
And they trust, yeah.
Right. So if you have that, all three, it just makes you, a force to be reckoned with. So I always try to invest in my relationships. I can always do better, but business owners have to also think about like, man, business is conducted even after store hours, right? So it's about make sure you're tapping in with people, not only when you need something. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Like, don't contact me only when you need something, right? Reach out, but hey, how's the family? How's the kids? How's Cosign? Anything where I can help you with? Do you have any events coming up? Just tap in, circle in every once in a while. That's how you nurture relationships.
For sure.
And then, when you do need something, people are more prone to help and assist because you've always been there. You've been on front of mind. So
yeah,
I think it's extremely important. And, it's just something that we all have to do better in nurturing. I know life is hard.
It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. People have personal, things that they struggle with that they have to handle. But just know in business, you're going to need those relationships at one point in time. So,
for sure.
Even if it's dedicating half a day, it's like going through your contacts and just talking to people and making sure they're okay. It goes a long way.
Yeah, I love that. I want to circle back to Cosign as a company. You mentioned that you guys at one point started printing magazines and whatnot, but now it's more of a media company. I want you to touch more on some of the services that you provide and some of the projects that you guys got going on. I mentioned that you guys have a podcast as well. Love for you to hit on that.
Nah, definitely. So one of my favorite media companies is Complex, right? And Vice. So Vice.
If I can interject real quick,
of course.
Is that kind of what you inspired to be?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm inspired by both of them.
Yeah.
Because they both started off as print magazines, and you've seen what they've grown to. Vice was, a print magazine. Now they have their own network, their own channel, documentaries, everything.
Crazy.
Same thing with Complex. Complex started as a magazine. Now it's a media powerhouse. They buy other media companies. They have so many different series. They have so many partnerships, live events, festivals, conferences. So I inspire Cosign to be both of them, but for like entrepreneurs and creators. It's like even when I delve into sports, I want to dive into like the business of sports, the creativity behind sports. I'm not really worried about stats and highlights and all that, but it's more so like, man, what else do you want to do outside of basketball or football? Are you investing in businesses? Are you an artist? Like what are you doing on your free time? Like that type of stuff because they're real people just like us. So and it inspired me to create series. So, we created this More Than a Model series under our Cosign network. So that's basically, a video series where we dive deep into models of how they got started into modeling. Are there any like negative connotations that they deal with when it comes to modeling and who they are as a person? A lot of times we see models on IG, we may think like they're beautiful, but they're stuck up, they're hard to approach.
Yeah.
But these are like regular people. Most of these models I know are super hilarious, have a great personality. They just, they just come off as maybe unapproachable because they're working. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to build those relationships with them. Outside of that, we have Cosign Conversations, which is my podcast where I interview entrepreneurs and creatives about their blueprints of success and share, other topics and subjects. Then we have the Cosign Life Law, which is kind of like behind the scenes of what it takes to run a media company. And then for events, we have the Cosign Awards, which is the annual.
Which is coming up, right?
Coming up in November. So it's our annual charity dinner and gala to we award minority entrepreneurs, creatives, executives, influencers, and educators across 16 categories. That's one of like our biggest events of the year.
Wow.
Everybody comes together, about 500 people. It's just a beautiful thing to see everybody dressed up and just celebrating each other.
Is anybody invited or is it?
Yeah. That's a great question, man. So people always hit me up and be like, man, I ain't get an invite. I say, it's open invite. Link in bio.
Link in the bio.
Yeah, link in bio. Anybody can come. So, I mean, I think a lot of times people are like, man, how do I get nominated? And that's a great question. So nomination process. Okay, so nominations start as open nomination, right? So when a link drops, you can go nominate anybody. So people can promote to tell, hey, their audience to go nominate me, right? After that, we take the nominations into consideration, and then we have a board who taps in their nominations, and then we narrow it down to 5 people across 16 categories. From there, there's a voting phase to where people can vote online, and then the winners is announced at the actual gala. But yes, it's open invite. You could buy a ticket to come, a table for you, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, significant other, whatever you want to do. I always tell people, man, at least come check it out once. Like everybody is a fan of it, but it's like, I get it. They want to be nominated, and it's like, man, trust me, I appreciate it. But it's like, it's just something to come experience and support.
Yeah, and that's great networking.
Great networking. Like everybody there has something going on. Everybody. So it's always great to be in the building, and I appreciate the city of Dallas for supporting. Quick story, when we first did it, I didn't believe in it, honestly. So I have a friend.
Why did you start it?
So I have a friend / he was a silent business partner, but he's really a friend. His name is Ricky. Ricky believed in me early on, and I never told the story. So Ricky believed me early on. I was still working a job, right? And Ricky, I didn't know Ricky from anything. He just hit me up, and he was like, "This is the first time anybody ever wanted to invest in Cosign." And he was like, "Man, I really love what you're doing. I want to invest in Cosign." I'm young, don't know what to do, and I'm like, "Man, how much?" He was like, "Man, I got $1,000." And I'm like, "That don't sound like a lot."
Right.
Don't sound like a lot. I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Bet you give me $1,000, bro, and we'll do like a trial period. You know what I'm saying? I'll let you invest in like a couple of events. First of all, I couldn't do a couple of events with $1,000.
Right.
But Ricky was so solid. What ended up happening was he gave me $1,000, and he was like, "I don't want nothing." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He like, "I don't want nothing. Just take the $1,000 and do you, and let me know what you have coming up, and I'll invest in the event." So he gave me $1,000. I put into the business, no equity or nothing. He was just like, "Whatever you need help with, I just want to help with you on those." So then I started doing the Cosign Experience, which was a weekend fashion show, networking. It was a Latin art show, all types of stuff. And he would just like, "How much do you need to get this done?"
Wow.
I'd be like 3,000. He'd be like, "Okay, I got 1,500. Can you get the 1,500?" I'm like, "Bet, I got you." Wow. And then I would do that. And then like after the weekend was up, I'd be like, "Okay, this is how much we made." He'd be like, "Okay, put that back in the business. I don't want nothing."
Wow.
I'm gonna tell you this, to this day, I probably only gave Ricky $500 because he wouldn't take it. He was like, "Bro, just put it back into the business." He's like, I don't need it."
That's a blessing.
It is a blessing. You know what I'm saying? So like I always tell people like like Ricky, like regardless if he's on paper with Cosign or not, I'm always look out for Ricky. You know what I'm saying? But Cosign Awards was Ricky's idea. So he was like, man, we should do an award show. And I'm like, I don't think we're at that point yet, Ricky. I don't think people are, you know what I'm saying? I just didn't feel like the brand was there to where we could.
You wanted to fill up the space. You wanted to make sure people was there and involved.
I didn't think we could validate people like that. Yeah, like Cosign was growing, but it was like, man, I didn't think our stamp was like that.
Yeah.
And bro, the first award show we sold out. And it was Ricky's idea. Granted, I mean, it was his idea. I had to do all the leg and groundwork, but if it wasn't for him, like saying, bro, believe it, we could do it, I would have never did the Cosign Awards, or I would have kept it as an idea and held on to it for a long time and never executed. So this is our 5th year. All 4 years we sold out, bro.
Wow.
All 4 years we sold out. It's been a success. Each year grows more and more. I look back at the first year and I'm like, damn, we could have did a lot more, but it was a great time. Yeah. Everybody enjoyed themselves, and now it's amazing. So shout out to Ricky for that, man.
Yeah, shout out to Ricky. And everybody comes suited and booted, right?
Everybody comes suited and booted, man. Everybody. So it's beautiful to see, you know, people that, you know, we always, you know, just, you know, in our street clothes or work clothes, and then you get to see them in a suit. You get to see ladies in a gown, makeup, hair done, dudes fresh. Like it's beautiful. Everybody's handsome and gorgeous. So you know, it's dope.
I love that. That's amazing. That's dope. Man, just transitioning a little bit, I want to talk about, you know, the space of media, marketing, and just the whole digital space is constantly evolving and changing every single day. Something new coming out.
Definitely.
Web3, NFT, all this craziness, right?
All this.
What's a space or a thing that you're currently educating yourself about right now? Maybe it's something that you want to implement into your business. Maybe it's something that you just want to learn more about. Like, what in this space are you like looking forward to, or you're trying to like, okay, let me educate myself about this?
So at a point, I was trying to educate myself on NFTs, right? But to be completely transparent, I understand it, but I still don't really fully comprehend, right? So I don't want to invest my energy right now into that when there's so many other things I need to be doing to build Cosign, right? So I know there's opportunity cost. So like I could miss out on something great, but I'm okay with that because I don't fully comprehend it. You know what I'm saying? So once I do, then I'll get into the space. So NFTs, I'm kind of sitting on. The metaverse, man, it looks dope, but it's like I would rather buy physical real estate than digital real estate. You know, so it's like I'm holding off on that too. I would partner with somebody on some type of like, you know, web event. You know what I'm saying? I do feel like we need to be knowledgeable about it. So we held an event called Crypto in Color for like, you know, minorities of color to learn about crypto, Web3, and all that. So I'm with the educational aspect of it. I'm just not ready to dive in and invest into those projects yet.
I think that's important, man. At least educating yourself.
Exactly.
I mean, I feel like we're like 5, 7, 8 years out until it's more people are on it, but it's good to educate yourself little by little.
Educate yourself. Like I'm still in like the, you know, the IRL in real life aspect right now, right? So I want to invest more into like how can I build larger scale events? That's what I'm researching, because I've done big events, right? But when you look at, you know, huge conferences like Complex Con or like the CCNYC does a huge event in Atlanta. I mean in New York now. I can't remember. Culture Con. Culture Con. You know, when you look at stuff like that, it's like that's the phase of Cosign I want to be in next, right? So and to do that I need to be all hands on, right? So what do brands look like when they give top sponsorship dollars for like that? They look at the audience, the data, right? So if you really ask what I'm researching is data, right? So media companies
talk about it.
Media companies have grown from just doing media, right, to then becoming marketing agencies, right? So like now, because you're already creating media content for yourself, now media companies create content for other companies, right? So that's one phase of growing as a media company. The second phase, and now which everybody's in right now, is the data aspect. So basically, as a media company, you have all this data from your consumers, your audience, and your viewers, and from doing in-person events that you could then basically sell to companies, right? So for example, if I want to work with Toyota, I can create, you know, an event centered around surveys, centered around user experiences about vehicles, and tell Toyota why people would rather buy their vehicles, Toyota vehicles, over a Nissan, right?
Yeah.
And then by doing that, that's like you're becoming a data agency.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that companies are starting to do now.
Yeah.
So as a media company,
data the new gold.
it is. So like that's one thing I'm learning more about, is because people are really, data and analytical, and it's like, man, for me, I didn't know much about that. Like I know how many people came to my event. I know my Google Analytics numbers, but there's so much more data we're missing out on. There's so many more touch points, right? So like even like simple surveys you can put out at the beginning of your event. When people go, whether it's a free or paid event, when people go buy tickets, include 3 to 4 questions on there that you can use to repurpose at the beginning of your event. Take that information, put it wherever you need to put it in, and then now you have more data for your event that you could pitch to other clients.
And what type of data points are you looking to
Man,
add?
so buying behaviors.
Got it.
Buying behaviors, demographic. So a lot of things is the consumer experience, right? So where do consumers spend their money, right? So we think about this. Do they dine out frequently? Are they drinking a lot? Are they spending it on new home purchases, car purchases, clothing? If you could learn a person's buying experience, you could pitch that data to that industry. You're saying 67% of our audience is looking to buy a car in the next 2 to 3 years. Out of that percentage, 92% of them are fans of Toyota Camrys. Now I could take that to Toyota. Like, this is why you need to partner with us. This is why anything coming to Dallas, Atlanta, Miami should be working with Cosign, because this is the demographic you want to reach, and we have the numbers to match that, right? So people, especially media companies, need to tap into that a lot more, right? So figure out ways to embed that into programming. People look over Instagram polls. As long as you capture before it expires, man, that's data, that's touch points.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So keep that, take that information offline. I mean, well, online it's like Excel or whatever you host your data in, and just keep updating it. That's one thing that I'm really researching and want to get into, because I'm starting to realize that's the shift. Because like first it was marketing agencies, then it was influencer agencies, now it's the data. So like if you could really tell people, the data about your consumers, your audience, your viewership, man, that's gold right there.
No, I heard that. I know when I was working with a marketing agency, when I was in LA, a lot of companies would buy email lists, and they would spend big money on these email lists. Like, it's technically you're not supposed to be doing it. Yeah. But they spend big money on it. You know what I'm saying? Because the point is it's data that they can use and they can repurpose.
It's all data.
And they can sell to people and whatnot.
See, that's another thing too. So like, I'll be transparent. Like, for a point, I thought email lists were dead. I'm like, man, people don't really open and consume emails like that, but they're not. Yeah. So like everything should be some type of RSVP to capture those emails.
Yeah.
Capture data. I started a community text texting to get numbers. I mean, it's a little pricey once you're growing it, but once you grow it to where you want and figure out how to monetize it, man, that's another touch point. Like even like with marketing aspect, you can send out promotional texts and get their feedback. Text open percentage rate are way higher than email. So if you have a great text open and email open, bro, that's money right there.
That's game right there. That's game. What type of impact do you see Cosign having on the community, let's just say, with the next 5 to 7 years? I know people ask, like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 7 years? But I want to know, where do you see the company at? I know you mentioned that you want to do larger events and whatnot, but what do you see in the next 5 to 7 years? So when we come back and revisit this, we're going to be like, I told you so.
Man, I want to invest in experiences and events and individuals and businesses that my daughter could look up to, right? And what I mean by that is, I'm Panamanian, full Panamanian. My daughter is Panamanian, Puerto Rican, and black. Yeah,
Puerto
Rican. Yeah, her mom is black and Puerto Rican, and I'm Panamanian, right? So my daughter, I want her to be proud of being a woman and being a Latina, right?
Yeah.
So
talk about it.
I want to have those experiences for her. So I try to keep, women around us in Cosign, even though Cosign is like right now, like is majority male, but I try to keep women around so that she could look up to them and see that, hey, she can do it too, right? So a lot more like women events, a lot highlighting more women. And we even, started La Vida Cosign, which is basically like a Latino version for Cosign magazine, where we strictly only highlight and promote Latino artists, businesses, entrepreneurs, etc. I'm doing that with Frank. he's helping me out with that because my Spanish is so. You know what I'm saying?
Same here, bro.
Spanish is so. So like I interviewed a fellow Panamanian in Miami named Ike Music, and he only spoke Spanish. So like I didn't want to speak Spanglish and he really understand me, or I didn't want to speak English and then had to translate. So brought people in. So we're really going to like dive more into that aspect. I feel like the the Latin demographic is wide open too. Like there's not much dedicated to it. You know what I'm saying? There's like a few media outlets, but there's not a lot. So it's like a lot of opportunities that we're missing out to telling stories and experiences for that. So that's kind of where like the impact I kind of see Cosign having is not only do we want to create experiences that are fun and engaging, but we want to educate people on culture, on business, on how to get ahead, on how to turn, your passion into a paycheck. Like I play basketball because I like it, I enjoy it, but how can I go deeper with the tournament? So like we're talking about how it's therapeutic. To me, that's mental health. So like now we're adding a mental health component to the tournament series, right? To like, people play basketball to get their mind off things, right? So can we partner with the, mental health nonprofit to like give, some of the funds back to them, or, saying some content around it. So I want everything that we do to have a purpose. Even if we're monetizing it, we want to be able to give back in some aspect of it. So that way it's impactful, to the audience that we're trying to attain.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you're saying about the representation in the Latino community. 'Cause that's the reason why we started this, right? When you're talking about investing in business, I'm pretty sure it's not the person that you're thinking of. It's not me, right? When you think of owning a media company, it's probably not somebody that looks like you, right? So it's important for us to highlight people like you, to have more women around, so we can show people that it is possible.
Definitely.
That there's not a certain way that you have to look or act. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
You can be yourself and come from where you come from and be successful. So that's why we do the Latin Wealth podcast, and I love what you're doing as well.
That's amazing, man. I love that you do this, bro.
Yeah, for sure. We can start wrapping this thing up. Just a couple more questions, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious, a recent failure that you had, and how did you overcome it?
A recent failure.
It could be anything, man. It can, you mentioned that you're a father.
Yeah.
It can be,
That's actually a great question. A recent failure. I would say the one that sticks out to me the most recently was man, I feel like there's so many failures. But that's how you get better though. I'll talk about one of my biggest failures. I can't really think recent.
Yeah.
One of my biggest failures was I had a studio in Arlington. It was my first studio, Cosign Media. And basically I got the studio because I was like, man, I really need a place. I really need a place. I need a space. But I didn't know why I needed it for. Right. So one side of the lot, or what is it called? Of the building or whatever it is, there was my cousin had Katie's Custom Jewelry, and then there was an empty space, and on the other side, one of my closest friends had a clothing store, TNC Unlimited. So there was a space in the middle that just opened up, and I knew at that time I wasn't financially stable to have my own space because I wasn't really making no money. But I talked to both of them, and they were like, man, you know what I'm saying, we could do photos and videos and all that. I wasn't really doing photo shoots, so it was like I would have to bring photographers in, but they were like, bet, let's do it. So we had no plan, no concept, no idea. We was like, we're going to get the space and make it work. So we got the space, painted this big old Cosign. I hired Big Tex to paint the Cosign logo on there, painted the Cosign colors, hit up Ricky. Ricky went in on some equipment.
Yeah. Shout out to Ricky.
Ricky with us some equipment. Now we got Cosign Media Studios. Ain't got no clients.
Ooh.
So that every month, and we had to sign a 2-year lease. So every month that lease hitting, no clients. So I'm like, all right, well, okay, well, at least let me do my Cosign interviews out there, and then I could draw people in. So I'm doing some interviews. Let alone at that time I didn't do photography, videography, so I'm just winging it. I'm doing interviews by myself. Audio's messed up, or my SD card runs out, and I didn't know. I'm just doing a whole interview. So like I'm really messing up. So I'm like, okay, I didn't really need to bring somebody in. Took me a while to actually find somebody, but at this time it's like 4 or 5 months in, we still not making no money. So we're just paying rent every month. And at this time, my other friend, his business wasn't doing as well either. So it's like he's paying his rent and he's putting in our rent. So of course, if you had to choose, you're gonna choose yourself first.
Right.
So it came to a point, man, we got like maybe like 2 or 3 months behind on it, like trying to make partial payments, but they like, no, we need full.
Yeah, they need full.
Making partial payments. So over time, they ended up locking the studio, and I had my equipment in there, and they locked it up, had my equipment in there. And the worst part, to which what hurt me the most, was it was in my fiance at the time. My fiance's, it was in her name, because I was still building my credit. So she put in her name because she believed in me, and I let her down. So I let her down, I let myself down, and I let my, you know what I'm saying, my friends down, and I let Ricky down.
Yeah.
So that's one of those failures that sit with me hard, man, because I let so many people down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but I can tell from that failure, there's something. I mean, the reason why I asked the question is, I can tell you don't look at failures as failures, but more as lessons. And I'm sure you've learned from that.
Definitely.
And you use that to push you to go hard and to get you where you're at now.
You gotta have a plan with everything. Like I should have had a plan first.
For sure.
I should have known, like, okay, who I'm gonna have shoot in there. I should have had like maybe like a studio manager who's a photographer, videographer. That way it could be their studio home, and maybe give them like a discounted rate. Like if I knew my rent was $800, maybe like, hey, for $300, I'll give you access all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I give you a cut of what we bring in. That way, at least I'm making some of the rent, and they're helping me build a clientele. Because I'm not a photographer, videographer, so you know I wasn't really in that space, so I didn't really know who to reach out to. So there's a lot I would have done differently now that I know, you know. But yeah, so everything I go into now is I need to have a plan. I need to research who's going to be a part of it. How are we going to, you know, if we're not trying to make money, how are we at least going to break even? You know, so that way, you know what I'm saying, we're not in the red, or we're not just losing money, right? But if it's an investment to where, you know, we're not going to gain money back and we're losing money, how is it going to come back in the long run? You know, these are like a lot of questions that I ask myself now. No one get, because, you know, I came from a hustler mentality. Like, I'll figure it out as I go. But you can't always do that, man. You got to have a plan.
Especially with a family and whatnot.
Man, especially with a family.
Yeah.
Especially with a family. Like, man, there's been times I've been dead broke.
Yeah.
You know, like, man, like school closes coming up. So I'm gonna publicly say this too. Like, we're not together no more. But shout out to my ex-fiance, man, because when I say she held it down, I remember there was a Christmas. I'm like, Chris, I was out of there. I couldn't afford to buy my daughter no Christmas presents. And I had a kid and she had a kid. She bought Christmas presents for both kids. Like, not just like one for my daughter. Like, not like those viral memes where like, well, only my kids will get McDonald's. you know, not like, I'm talking about like clothes. She was really into music, so she bought her a guitar.
My wife asked me, like, what would you do in that situation? I was like, I'm bringing food for everybody. I'm sorry, this is how I am. But
man, yeah, because it's weird, like just eating in front of people, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, I would have just picked up my kid and, you know, took my kid out to eat. You know, I'm not gonna just bring one kid. But then again, like, well, yeah, that's her. He should know who's gonna be there. So,
yeah.
That was funny though. But yeah, so
she
like,
held it down.
She held it down. So, you know, I learned from all of that, you know, and I know what I don't want to put myself in ever again. Right. So just like you said, they're not losses, they're lessons.
Yeah.
But, you know, you really have to think about those lessons and how you're going to like make sure that, you know, you learn from it and it doesn't happen again. So that whole experience and phase that I went through for like those 3 years has taught me a lot, you know. Taught me how to manage money, relationships, coming up with a plan for business, and it's really made me stronger, honestly.
Yeah. I love that. Man, one last question I want to ask you, and before I hit you with that, you know, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, being transparent, giving some game to people out there. But something we always ask people on the Latin Wealth podcast is, who is one person that you feel needs to be on the Latin Wealth podcast? And the only caveat is you got to be able to know them. You got to have access to this person.
Oh, yeah, I got to co-sign them.
Right.
Man, I'm sorry. I'm gonna give you 3.
Okay, hit us.
I'm sorry. So my partner who with La Vida co-sign Frank Louboutin. He's Mexican. He does Kicks 101, which is like sneaker expo. He also has Kicks for Kids Dallas, which is a nonprofit to where he gives sneakers back to underprivileged kids who can't afford to have sneakers in school. He also owns a catering company. He's also a personal trainer, and then an influencer. And like I said, he helps with the magazine. So Frank Louboutin. Also going to say Roman Malvez. He's an entrepreneur and he's the Hennessy brand ambassador. He's super dope, man. One of the relationships that I've had that where it went from business to family. Like, it's my brother. That's 2, and the third one is we really got a whole group called the Lit Boys.
Okay,
so
okay.
so I gotta hit them all up.
We
in the
need to just
last
have
one.
the whole Lit Boys.
Yeah,
in here.
whole Lit Boys. And but it doesn't stand for what you think. So it's LIIT. So
Okay.
Lit Long Island Iced Tea Boys.
Okay.
And then the last one is
Boy,
Miggy.
laughing.
Is Miggy Miguel. So Miguel used to work at Gucci. He quit Gucci to run his jewelry business with his wife. So he does jewelry, and then he also does photography, videography, and he just started like a sneaker, it's like a sneaker shopping service.
Okay.
So all three of those are dope.
They're all in Dallas?
They're all in Dallas.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I got to give you 4 because I can't say all this and then not shout out to a woman. So my homegirl Emily De La Cruz, she's Dominican. She's originally from the Bronx. I'm from Brooklyn. We ain't gonna go there, but she's from the Bronx. She moved to Dallas. She's an expert in marketing. Expert. Like I look up to her when it comes to marketing. She also has her own event space in downtown. And she does Airbnb, real estate investment. Wow. She's super lit. And she just got a job at Meta, Facebook. So she's still an entrepreneur, but she wants to get in that corporate bag with Facebook.
Yeah, I heard that.
So she's super dope. So I'm if I had to say in order,
okay,
I'm gonna say hit up Emily first.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Ladies first, and she's dope. Shout out to my Dominican people. I love Dominicans. That's another story.
Another podcast.
Another podcast. Hit up Emily first, and then after that, any Lit Boy. I can't put them in order. But Emily first, and any one of the Lit Boys.
We're going to tap in for sure. I appreciate you for sure.
No doubt. I got you.
Thank you once again, man. Where can people reach out to you? Where can people learn more about Cosign and whatnot? Talk to the people.
Definitely, man. You can go to our Instagram, Cosign Mag. We'll have everything in. If you look at the link in the bio, we'll have our website, YouTube channel, where you can check out the podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We have the Cosign Awards coming up. That's the link in our bio as well. And like we talked about, since the Latin Wealth Podcast, if you want to know more about La Vida Cosign, that's in our bio as well, too. So, yeah, go to Cosign Mag on IG. You can find everything there. And I appreciate y'all, tapping in and checking us out.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate it. With that being said, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram at Latin Wealth. Share this episode with one other person that needs to hear this episode, whether it's a friend or family. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Hey, we out.
We out.